You are listening to the 415 Stories, where we are having fireside chats with amazing founders and venture capitalists from San Francisco and Silicon Valley. Enjoy the episode. Hello and welcome to the very first episode of 405 Stories. I'm your host, Taha. And we're excited not just because it is the very first episode of the show, but also I have an amazing guest for today. He is one of my favorite individuals here in Silicon Valley. And I don't even where to start, but uh, he has done lots of great works. He's a founder, technologist, speaker, a product designer, and beyond all the titles, he is famously known as the inventor of the hashtag. So, ladies and gentlemen, Chris Messina is with me today. Chris, it is such a pleasure for me to have you as the first guest of the show. Welcome to the 405 Stories.
Thank you. I'm honored.
Thank you so much for joining me. So, we have lots of amazing topics to talk about, but I'd like to start from the beginning, actually. You've been around for so many years, right? You've been working on lots of great things for so many years, and you made difference in the internet with various companies and projects. So, what made you decide to pursue such a career that made you ended up where it ended up today?
Yeah. It's funny to think that I've been around a while now, but I have spent about 15 years kind of working in the tech world. 14 of those was basically based in San Francisco and kind of riding that wave as the tech world kind of exploded and became something that, now we kind of take for granted everywhere you go. For myself, I've just always been fascinated and in many ways in love with technology, but also design. I care a lot about how individuals can take advantage and use technology. And I think, just based on both where I grew up in New England and the struggles that I saw with people around me to try to make use of technology, whereas I found it quite intuitive or quite simple, or I just had a curiosity about it, I wanted to make sure that other people had the same kind of opportunities to take advantage of the stuff that I did. And so I pursued a career in design, interaction design, graphic design, and also there was kind of an undercurrent of tech, I guess, in all the stuff that I did. And in particular for me, working on the web and building web products was the perfect merger of my interests in design and tech. And that just kind of, I don't know, like my timing just worked out really well when I got out to the Bay Area in 2004 and got involved with the Mozilla Firefox project. And that kind of just set the stage as well as the trajectory for everything that I ended up doing after that.
Yeah, that's great. So, I guess you always get this, but Chris, how you invented the hashtag? And I think why you invented the hashtag would be a better question to ask, just because I remember when we first met, I listened to you at Draper University. When you converted this question to why I invented the hashtag, then I said to myself, wow, there's something coming. And your speech was actually like one of the most inspiring and insightful speeches I've ever listened to. So, Chris, why did you invent the hashtag? I'd like to hear the story in that.
Well, thank you. That's really great praise. I think what's important for me in the story of the hashtag is really kind of understanding where we were back in the 2005 to 2006-7 era of the social web. These are the early days, and there was so much experimentation and so much unknown about the way in which these technologies were going to reshape, humanity, essentially. A lot of us that were working on these things just, again, wanted to build stuff that people used, that people really loved, that fit into their lives, and gave them a new way of expressing themselves that had never come before. At the same time, though, Silicon Valley and San Francisco in particular is a very interesting economic place. It's really a city of booms and busts. And the last time that there'd been kind of, a lot of money being made was in the first .com boom. And so there were still a bunch of people who were, I think, in Silicon Valley wanting to make a bunch of money from the popularization of technology. For me, though, like I went out to Silicon Valley, not because I wanted to get rich, but because I believe that was where all the misfits went, or the people who didn't really fit in everywhere else, and yet who loved technology. It wasn't really all that normal a decade to 15 years ago, to be so into tech and computers. I mean, it really was the realm of the geeks and the nerds. And so it was kind of hard to find your tribe. But when I went out to Silicon Valley, it wasn't too long before I found mine. And a lot of us shared similar values and ideals. And again, like I said, I started my work on the Mozilla Firefox project, which was intended to create a platform that would allow anybody to contribute their thoughts and their ideas to the web without getting permission first. And so the fact that I was able to, go and join this project and contribute in a meaningful way, meant that I wanted to pay that forward. So a lot of the things that I ended up working on were trying to figure out how to make the web less focused on documents as a core concept or organizing principle of digital information, but instead to also represent people and their relationships. And so I did a lot of work in that realm. And around 2006 to 2007, Twitter started to take off as a new platform for allowing people to publish what they were doing over text messaging, over SMS. This is right around the time when the iPhone was coming out, so we really weren't using the iPhone like we do and like we take for granted today. And so, as we had in previous eras of social web technology, like Flickr or upcoming.org and some of these other projects that were group-oriented, we were trying to find a way to enable groups to coalesce on Twitter just over text messaging. And it was becoming, really tricky. A lot of people wanted to just kind of build the thing that we'd already seen before that required a web browser. But I wanted to make sure that whatever it was that we built would be sort of mobile first, mobile friendly, and accessible by people who didn't have a web browser or didn't have necessarily a full, keyboard to join and contribute. And so I took a look at the limitations of text messaging. I took a look at the phones that were available at the time. I took a look at something called IRC, Internet Relay Chat, which is where a lot of my friends would kind of like hang out. It's, kind of like what Slack, right, kind of looks like. And, just kind of put all these things together and was like, well, what is the thing that's going to work in all these different contexts? And, in IRC, we had channels, and in a channel, you could join the channel and you could have a topic conversation. It was like a room, like a chat room. I was like, well, what if we brought chat rooms to Twitter, but made it so that, you could use any word in a tweet to kind of indicate that you wanted your content to go to that chat room, right? So it wasn't like you had to go to the chat room first, because that would take too much work. Instead, just say what you want and then identify a certain word as being important, and then the service will figure out how to get that to the right people. And so that's kind of how the hashtag came about. And then I wrote up a proposal for it. I published it on my blog, and then I took it to Twitter's headquarters. And they were having a lot of scaling problems at the time. And so when I presented it to Biz Stone, one of the co-founders, he just, kind of looked at me like, look, dude, I got like 1 million other feature requests right now. We can barely keep the service up and running. I think what you're suggesting is just, it's way too nerdy. It's never going to catch on. But, thanks for using us. And, I'll see you later.
Yeah, but like you proved them wrong.
I mean, I did, but it also took a while. The thing that's interesting about the hashtag, and I think it's important for me, with as popular as the hashtag is in modern language and usage, it's also, I think, a story about being humble, because the hashtag would not have succeeded if social media itself didn't succeed. It doesn't really live outside of it does live outside of the digital realm, but if there wasn't the digital realm that we rely on today, hashtags wouldn't really make as much sense. So there's this interesting dynamic where I kind of think of like the hashtag as like the barnacle that rode the social media whale, to success. Like it sort of went along for the ride, and it kind of became ubiquitous because it could be used on any social platform. It was intended to not just be for Twitter, but to be useful anywhere where people could use text. Again, just like you can have multiple web browsers that all use web technologies, the hashtag is a similar idea that should be useful by anybody who wants to create text or share their ideas online.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great story and a perspective. So, like, I mean, I use hashtags every single day, even if I'm in a text conversation with my friends, and even if it's not the right way to use, but I literally mark my important conversations with the hashtag, but like hashtag this or hashtag that, to make it like clear when I'm searching up. So there are so many ways to use it. And also it's been like more than 12 years since we came up with the concept. So what kind of usage of the hashtag you've seen so far, and how the usage of the hashtag evolved since it became a thing?
Well, yeah, I mean, it has been 12 years, and that just seems like such a long time. But On the other hand, in the course of human history, it's nothing, right? So it's actually quite fast.
Yeah, it's like a second.
Right, exactly. So everything's relative. But I think the thing that I think is so interesting to me is just the both the dexterity and the flexibility um, of communication that the hashtag has unlocked. A good friend of mine called hashtags kind of like this, like sort of linguistic portal that allows people to communicate over space and time in a way that, again, doesn't require any prior coordination. Like I've been out with other friends and they'll tell me how sometimes they just make up hashtags sort of randomly. You know, they think, well, whatever. I mean, like they don't even know why they're doing it. It just sort of feels like the thing that you're supposed to do. And they'll come up with something strange and arbitrary and just made up. And they'll post, you know, an Instagram photo or a tweet. And I think the thing that I find so interesting is that sometimes they'll then just out of curiosity, you know, tap on the hashtag and they'll find other people that have actually shared the same thing, even though they thought it was completely esoteric and that no one else would use it. And that to me is, I guess, one of the amazing things about, on the one hand, you know, just experiencing, you know, humanity and human experience, where we are not so dissimilar. And in fact, people could be having very similar ideas all over the world. And yet previously, it might be really, really hard to find them, especially if you were just restricted to using existing words or language. The hashtag allows you to just create all sorts of symbols and all sorts of different combinations of words that if you find the right key, you can literally unlock a portal to anybody else in the world who might be experiencing something very similar. And I think that's one of the things that I find most interesting and powerful, you know, in the last 10 to 12 years of kind of watching the evolution of the hashtag.
Yeah, that's really cool. So, Chris, let's get into a question that I'm really curious about. So,